In November 2022, a shy, not very popular guy grown in Cobb County, Georgia during the 90s pleaded guilty to the largest cryptocurrency theft in the history of the United States. After more than 10 years of going unnoticed and living a life filled with luxuries and vices, he was caught. 50,000 bitcoins, valued at $3.4 billion, were seized in 2021 from James Zhong's house. Jimmy to his friends. The bitcoins were found on a single-board computer, carefully covered with a blanket inside a Cheetos popcorn tin. But who was robbed by Jimmy? No one claimed those bitcoins? Well, the victim not only didn't claim the stolen bitcoins from Jimmy, but also thanked him for it and rewarded him with even more coins. So where's the crime? Jimmy certainly didn't have the best childhood. He was brutally bullied at school, constantly humiliated by his classmates. And he didn't have a supportive family either. His parents, two first-generation immigrants from China, were constantly working or looking for work. His parents divorced, and the situation worsened for Jimmy. With no friends, Jimmy found shelter and peace by being alone in his room with his computer. It allowed him to learn some programming and escape from the harsh reality he was facing. In 2008, Jimmy graduated from Central Gwinnett School with top grades and earned a scholarship to the University of Georgia to study computer science. He moved an hour away from home and never spoke to his parents again. Once at the university, he had two main problems. He was addicted to alcohol and had no money, although one of these would no longer be an issue in just a few years. In December 2009, while browsing programming forums, Jimmy discovered a new form of peer-to-peer money called Bitcoin and started mining this currency on his laptop. At that time, he was mining about 200 Bitcoins per day, but the value of a coin was less than a cent, which made Jimmy abandon the idea and stop mining. In 2011, the value of a Bitcoin rose to $30 per coin. Jimmy desperately went back to his old laptop to search for the coins he had mined 2 years ago, but he couldn't find them anywhere. Due to his desperation to get bitcoins, he started mining again. He also decided to create an account on BitcoinTalk, as the name suggests, a forum to discuss Bitcoin, to promote a Bitcoin gambling website he had developed, where he charged a fee for each transaction. Fortunately, he was also able to recover a large part of the bitcoins he had mined back in 2009, accumulating a significant number of coins. Despite Bitcoin's price dropping from $30 to $5, Jimmy, now only 21 years old, had a considerable amount of money, which led him to get into really bad habits. He drank heavily every weekend and started using cocaine, an addiction he would struggle with for years. Given his high computer knowledge, his interest in the web, and, well, his new need to consume cocaine every weekend, Jimmy discovered a way to acquire the substance through a website. You've probably heard of Silkroad. This website was becoming increasingly popular at that time, an online drug marketplace that used Bitcoin as its primary payment method. Just what Jimmy was looking for. But it seems that the product was not good enough for Jimmy's taste. So, after only a couple of transactions, Jimmy decided to withdraw all his Bitcoins from the platform. What he didn't know was that this action would lead him to discover a glitch that would sentence him to prison 10 years later. When withdrawing the coins from Silkroad, Jimmy accidentally pressed the withdraw button twice. To his surprise, he received twice the amount of bitcoins in his personal wallet. Jimmy had discovered a massive flaw in Silkroad's code. Later that day, he deposited 500 bitcoins on the platform and once again withdrew them, this time pressing the withdraw button 5 times. As expected, he received 2,500 coins in his wallet. During September 2012, Jimmy exploited this mechanism and stole a total of 50,000 bitcoins from Silkroad, which were valued at approximately $612,000 at that time. Obviously, the owner of the platform, Dread Pirate Roberts, realized that there was something weird going on and decided to contact Jimmy and ask him about the mechanism through which he was stealing the coins. After Jimmy explained the exploit to Pirate Roberts, he decided to reward him with more bitcoins instead of forcing him to return the stolen coins. Despite his intense love for partying, Jimmy was no fool. Instead of spending all the stolen coins on luxury and drugs, he decided to store them in 2 wallets and simply leave them untouched. Besides, he already had bitcoins acquired through legal means to spend as he pleased. However, keeping the funds hidden in his wallet didn't allow Jimmy to do something that was essential to him, flaunting the money he had. so he decided to post the address of his wallet on his BitcoinTalk profile so everyone could see his fortune. This would later turn out to be a huge mistake. In October 2013, Silkroad was shut down by the FBI. The owner of the platform, Ross Ulbrich, was sentenced to life in prison and fined $184 million. Only 170,000 of the estimated 614,000 bitcoins that Ross had earned from Silkroad's operations were confiscated. The FBI now had a copy of the platform's database with all transactions, including Jimmy's, and they had initiated an intense investigation to try to recover all the remaining coins. Although the FBI couldn't directly link the wallet addresses to specific individuals, since they were physical wallets and not exchanges, Jimmy had to keep a low profile as he was under scrutiny.
I'm right here watching history be made. Bitcoin is now up to $111. This is the highest that it's been. It's ridiculous.
By that time, Bitcoin was already valued at $500, which means Jimmy's net worth was $30 million, and he simply couldn't resist. At the age of 23, fresh out of university, Jimmy began living the high life, inviting all his friends on trips to Miami and gifting them Bitcoins to impress them. Also, his addiction to cocaine and bad habits became more frequent in his life. He bought a house and the car of his dreams. But despite his high spending, Jimmy always paid his taxes whenever he liquidated his bitcoins, preventing the IRS from suspecting him. Also, he paid for all these expenses with the bitcoins he obtained legally. Despite the fluctuating price, he never touched the 50,000 illegal bitcoins in 5 years. This fact showcases how smart Jimmy actually is. In 2017, Bitcoin gained significant popularity, and as a result, its price skyrocketed, reaching $20,000 per coin. This meant that Jimmy now had a net worth of $1 billion. At the same time, Jimmy started gaining a lot of attention on BitcoinTalk. Exactly what you don't want when you have $1 billion in illegally obtained bitcoins. On March 24, 2017, he made his last post on the platform and was never seen posting again. But why? As it turns out, this exposure raised suspicions of a curious Redditor who began investigating the origins of the funds Jimmy had in his wallet, the one he had proudly shared on his BitcoinTalk profile back in 2013. The investigation revealed that the true source of the funds was Silkroad. However, this wouldn't change the fact that Jimmy now had over $1 billion at his disposal to spend as he pleased. This is when Jimmy went truly crazy. He bought multiple Lamborghinis, jet skis, motorcycles, spent millions of dollars on private flights, yachts. He treated his friends to 5-star hotels, major sports events, and even gifted them bitcoins worth millions of dollars. In March 2019, Jimmy made another major mistake that contributed to the end of his partying, drugs, and infinite wealth, and led to the government seizing his huge fortune. Apparently, someone broke into his house and stole a briefcase containing $400,000 and a thumb drive with important information, likely millions in Bitcoin. Instead of letting the incident slide and acting as if nothing happened, considering he had much more to lose than a few $100,000 in cash, Jimmy reported the robbery to the police. Given the large amount of cash he reported as stolen, the IRS became suspicious of the true origin of these funds and initiated a secret investigation behind Jimmy's back to uncover the truth about his money. They discovered an exchange account in his name and gained access to it, being now able to see all past transactions Jimmy had made and those to come. Jimmy was very careful to avoid mixing his legally obtained bitcoins with his Silkroad coins. For 8 years, he had never sent his illegal bitcoins to an exchange to avoid linking them to his name. So, despite more than a year of investigating Jimmy's transactions, the IRS remained unaware of his illegal bitcoins and their connection to Silkroad. And they wouldn't have found out if Jimmy had kept his meticulousness when moving his coins. On November 24, 2020, while reorganizing the structure of his Silkroad funds, spreading them across multiple wallets, Jimmy accidentally mixed his Silkroad bitcoins from his private wallets with one of his exchange wallets. This gave the IRS a lead to follow. Soon enough, the IRS realized this and found the secret entrance to all of Jimmy's wallets containing his Silkroad funds. It wasn't difficult for the IRS to link the funds to Silkroad, just as it had been for the Redditor. So, 1 year later, in November 2021, the FBI raided Jimmy's house. They found $661,000 in cash hidden in a floor safe, 25 Casacius coins worth 174 bitcoins, or $10,440,000, and a Cheetos popcorn tin containing a single board computer wrapped in a blanket that held all of Jimmy's bitcoins, valued at $3.4 billion at the time of the seizure. But what was illegal about Jimmy's actions? There were no real victims. The only potential victim was Ross Ulbrich, who, as we recall, thanked Jimmy for taking his bitcoins and even rewarded him with more coins. And Ross was already sentenced to life in prison. That's why, in the end, at the age of 33, Jimmy was only sentenced to 1 year and 1 day in prison for money laundering. Although it may sound like a great outcome, it wasn't for Jimmy. The U.S. government seized all of his bitcoins, totaling 51,680 coins, including the legally obtained ones worth $42 million. They also confiscated his shares in his real estate company and his personal properties. Since his arrest, Jimmy has worked as an Uber and Lyft driver and claims to have lost sense in life, since his friends are no longer interested in him, and he finds himself alone and bankrupt. In 10 years, Jimmy spent only 1% of the bitcoins he had. This was the story of the second largest seizure ever made by the U.S. Department of Justice. If you like the video, you can watch a similar one about the story of a woman from Minnesota who stole $250 million from hungry children.